Hey everyone, it's Ivan, KeepAgile.com, out here with my course Loadout from the 2021 3-day night vision course with AMTAC shooting. If you follow my content, you know I've previously taken the AMTAC shooting 3-day night vision course. This was actually kind of a cool course in that essentially bookends for my series on night vision. So initially started with pretty much budget gear, and then this course kind of rounded out with top of the line stuff. But as far as kind of what I was wearing, we'll go ahead and start there. Because it's North Idaho in October, sometimes you get rain. So during the days it was raining, ended up wearing this right here, which is the Defiant Hoodie by Prometheus Design Works. Pretty awesome, basically a rain shell. Also has pit zips, so if you start to get warm, you can mechanically vent, which is nice once you start kind of moving around a bit. And then also, to keep the rest of me dry, these right here, which are by Outdoor Research. I forget the model of these guys, but they are basically waterproof pants. And they zip all the way up the sides, which is really nice. Makes it really easy to throw on, take off. And yeah, that stuff definitely kept me dry. As far as kind of warming layers, I ended up actually wearing this guy right here, which is the Active Flex jacket by Wild Things. It's really great. There's definitely warmer like insulation layers, and this kind of strikes the balance of being warm, especially when you're kind of dynamic. So if you're just sitting somewhere static, not the warmest layer, but being able to stay pretty comfortable, especially with a little bit of movement, and then also being able to actually have movement. There's some stretch in here. And then, yeah, lastly, definitely a little bit water resistance there, which was handy, especially on the first day where it just kind of sprinkled a little bit, but served me well. Going back to staying warm and comfortable, actually was wearing these pretty much the whole time. These are the Tactical Distributors Merino base layer. They're kind of their level 1 as far as that progression goes. Next to skin layer. And yeah, merino wool. Long underwear, both the pants as well as the top. Some days I was pretty much just wearing this top, depending again on output level and how warm it was. And then as far as pants, I was wearing these. I think these are the guide cloth pants, I want to say, by Prometheus Design Works. Raider cut, probably my favorite cut of pants, just because basically where the pockets are makes it really convenient the way I carry things, to include tourniquets, other everyday carry gear, stuff along those lines. Did a great job for me as well. And then socks. Want to keep your feet warm. And I ended up actually wearing these. Unbeknownst to me, 511 actually makes some Merino socks. These are some of their higher ones, but yeah, ended up wearing a couple different pairs. Managed to change my socks each day of these guys right here. Did a good job. And then lastly, it sucks having wet feet. So I was wearing these, I believe they're their Johhny combat boots by Viktos. These are actually waterproof and yeah, served me well. It was really muddy there, and these definitely kept my feet dry and relatively warm, in part because they're waterproof, so not super breathable, but that translates into being warm when it's cold and wet, so not a bad thing. And then, because I hate having all the rest of my gear wet, a couple different things. One, I tried and true, Prometheus Design Works CC12 cargo container 12. It does a great job. Like, you can zip this thing up, throw everything in there. I will say it can get really heavy, especially if it's loaded down. And so I would bring everything in there, or most things in there. And then if I needed to bring other stuff, because range access, lots of times you're walking up and down the hill, would basically use this. This is the Tactical Distributors dry bag, and works great. Zipper right here, zip this thing up, and then it has these 2 shoulder straps, which you can carry kind of over a shoulder, or you can basically wear it like a backpack. So for the day, I would grab kind of whatever I needed to actually bring down to like the range, throw it all in there and keep everything nice and dry. which was good, especially on those wet days. Diving into the rest of the gear I had going on. Oh, actually, and real quick, I actually wore these Magpul gloves too. Did a good job, mainly kind of as a contact glove when it was kind of cold. Once it started getting wet, didn't really wear them anymore because once they get wet, now you just have cold, wet hands. But when it was dry out, these did a pretty good job for me. As far as PPE, personal protective equipment, I once again was using these Smith Director Elites, prescription glasses, ballistic lenses. They're kind of getting pretty beat up, a little bit scratched. Probably need to replace them pretty soon. And then Ear Pro was using my OpsCore amp headset, which is really nice. One, being able to move easily back and forth between this and then simply taking these off and putting them onto the arms so they can basically be helmet mounted. And can't say enough how important it is to have amplified hearing protection, especially like in a course environment where you want to actually hear stuff that's going on. And then also something that's really comfortable, so after a while you're not too busy worried about how uncomfortable your Ear Pro is, because they're basically smashing your eye pro into the side of your head, and these served me well there. And speaking of basically getting those things mounted up, during the night portion where I was wearing my night vision, was wearing this guy right here, which I believe is I think this is their Sentry cut helmet by OpsCore. Pretty awesome. I know a lot of people are like, I need the super high cut so I can get shot right in my ear. Maybe you do, I don't know. When it comes to ballistic protection, if you're gonna wear a ballistic helmet, there's definitely an argument to be made for actually having ballistic protection. And overall, pretty lightweight, especially considering that ballistic protection. And with these rails on here, was able to easily take my Ear Pro off, throw them in here, drop them down, and in addition to being able to have your Ear Pro on, these do a good job of basically keeping your Ear Pro in place and almost, well, yeah, basically supporting your helmet and keeping it in place as well. And then over here on this side, had the VariArc by Thyrm, I guess it is. Pretty cool, basically a piece of pick rail that can rotate, and on it have this SureFire Scout Pro Vampire, I guess it is. So being able to use white light as well as IR light. And we'll get to my pistol in a minute, but big picture, I did not have IR illumination on my pistol, and we actually did a run and gun at night. Had this thing moved over to IR, I would turn it on if I needed illumination, draw my pistol out, basically shoot passive with the optic, and it did actually an amazing job. Worked out really well. And then on here, of course, set up for my night vision. For that, protected in bubble wrap. Was using these right here, PVS 31s. Pretty cool, mil-spec, dual tube, white phos, and being able to articulate them is definitely really nice, especially being able to, like, depending on what you're doing, and even though for me, kind of like administrative stuff, but being able to quickly like lift the tubes up out of the way if I was manipulating my camera or something like that, or if I just needed to quickly see if ambient conditions had changed. Because you get sucked into night vision and you're like, only I can see in the dark, and then you're like, oh, actually, like, I'm backlit because there's this other light source over here or something along those lines. To include the moon, like the moon is actually really bright out there. But stuff worked great. Could throw it up, roll this back, so rather than having all the weight way out in front, dragging your head down, basically just rock these things back, made it very comfortable, and yeah, easy to use. Great tubes. I also got some, don't have it on here right now, but got some footage through these using the by Unobtainium gear, basically a mission recorder. So recording everything I saw, which was pretty cool to be able to just kind of get that first person view as well. Along the lines of night vision, ended up borrowing this from my buddy, also in its special bubble wrap. It's the Cody. So I believe they have a newer version, E-Cody. Not sure what the difference is, but ended up using this because we were doing a little bit of stuff where, again, showing the limitations of night vision and where thermal comes in. And so we actually had a thermal we were able to look through, and some people went down in the woods and it's like, can you see them? And no, you really couldn't, especially if they were holding still. But throwing this Cody on, rather, something or other, thermal overlay, it's projecting a thermal overlay onto your night vision. So you have a pretty cool overlay and you're able to see things you otherwise would not be able to see. Pretty neat. I didn't spend a bunch of the course running around with it because, well, pretty much shooting paper and steel. Wasn't really in a position for this to be advantageous, but for the sake of being able to find things like with a heat source, really, really incredible piece of equipment. From there, what else? I guess we'll go into kind of my first line setup. For my belt setup, I was using this. It is the Salt belt, I believe it is, by Arbor Arms. Basically a three-part belt system, I guess. You have your inner belt, which actually goes on your pants with female Velcro on the outside. And then you have this padded section. This might be the non-padded version, which basically has male Velcro on the inside. And then inside of that, you actually have your Cobra belt, so really easy to take on and off. And with the way the Velcro works, once you put it on and in place, it doesn't move, which is really nice. And the way this is set up, super easy to kind of shuffle around gear, things like that too. I was using these two pistol mag pouches by, I'm not sure who, and I was shooting basically my P320 X5 with that 17 round magazines, or 17 round, 21 round magazines, using these as well as some others that actually a friend of the channel gave me with some kind of aftermarket base plates. They did a great job. Coming over here, Live the Creed blowout kit, really easy to access, basically at 6 o'clock on my belt. Always had that med kit with me, and then my tourniquet on my person. And then we're shooting this pistol right here. P320 X5 with some other stuff going on. So I had my X300 Ultra, white light, and then on here I have the Grey Ghost Precision slide, which I believe is actually the like P320 full-size slide, not the X5. And then with that, a Faxon threaded barrel in there too, which is cool, especially when you're shooting suppressed. And then also was running this right here. It's the 507C GR-X2 by Holosun. Really awesome optic. Basically, it gives you this huge circle and then a little chevron on the inside. What that big circle does is lets you immediately correct if you don't present the pistol correctly initially, and bigger picture, because hopefully you're presenting correctly. If you get into some sort of unconventional position, it lets you find basically the center of your reticle and that green chevron. Actually did a really good job being able to lower it down to effectively a night vision setting so I could shoot passively through it. Ultimately, this pistol did a great job for me. I'm sure some of you are like, you don't have iron sights in there. You're gonna get killed in the streets. Possibly, but also don't carry this gun in the streets. This was literally set up initially to just have fun and shoot suppressed, and I ended up taking it and shooting through that night vision course with it. Did a great job for me there. As far as some other things that came in handy was fix-it sticks. Not necessarily for myself, but some other people there had some issues with some different stuff, so was able to pull those things out, get them the tools they needed to fix their stuff. And then also something pretty cool by Thyrm is battery vault. I don't remember what it's called. It's basically something that carries batteries. And inside of here, open it up, it's all waterproof, and you can put all your different types of batteries to include 2032s, basically these recessed sections down below. Again, definitely came in handy. helped out some people that had some batteries die. So pretty cool being able to have that as well. Other gear. Well, this definitely came in handy. So some people's guns started getting sluggish, not wanting to run. This is basically how I clean weapons at this point, because I like shooting guns. I don't really like cleaning them. And this gun cleaner, basically like brake cleaner by Lucas Oil, essentially blast it with this, gets rid of all your carbon, and then blast it with some CLP, put it back together, start shooting. I will say this stuff came in handy for myself with that SR25. Two things. One, thing dries out pretty quick, shooting just suppressed. And the other issue I had is, while mostly was shooting this stuff right here, like South African 150 grain ball ammo, surplus from probably like 30 years ago, it did a good job for me, but I had some of these mixed in. I want to say by Spark Munitions, stuff left over from the Coast to Coast tour, in like 175 grain Sierra Match King tipped. Horrible ammo. For whatever reason, loaded, I think like really hot. So honestly, not getting very good accuracy out of it, but bigger picture, stuff would blow primers, and I had like maybe 10 rounds. Somehow they got mixed in. I had all my ammo in one of these guys, basically. I have another one, this one right here, by MDOM, I believe it is. Pretty handy, able to just throw all your rounds in there, get them out of boxes, and so you can just grab them, start jamming mags. Worked great. But I had a number of these rounds in there, like literally 10 of them. Somehow they made it in some magazines. Sure enough, blew a primer. Basically deadlined my gun until took it apart, sprayed it out with that stuff, got it running again. As I mentioned earlier, these magazines here. Awesome 21 round magazines with these base plates. Friend of the channel, so I'm appreciative of that. Other things, well, I guess kind of my setup right here, armor setup. So I was wearing this, which, well, I was wearing this on the last day. This plate carrier right here, this is the, I believe, Model 13 by Whiskey 24. Pretty cool, fairly minimalist plate carrier. And in it, some of the, I guess, 3+ plates I had did a great job for me. These plates that were in here too, fairly light, so wasn't burdened with just getting weighted down by this thing all day. And then day 2, which was pretty much rifle only, was using, get off me glove, was using this right here, which is a chest rig by Unobtainium Gear. It's their Dank Robber chest rig, heavy. So 3 different cells for your 308 pattern magazines, and then there's cells in front also if you want to run pistol magazines, which I did not do because we weren't shooting pistol. And then it's set up right now to where I've clipped it into this plate carrier. Day 2, when I wasn't wearing the plate carrier, basically had the harness going across, and maybe I was wearing a plate carrier. I don't remember. What I do remember is wearing just that kind of like X harness with this. It worked, but eventually, because of basically the clothes I was wearing, started just grinding into my neck. So I was like, I would rather not do that. So the next day, day 3, that last day of the course, clipped it in the plate carrier, did a much better job. Basically, then it just distributed the weight through the shoulder pads. Did awesome for me. So I had room for 3 magazines across the front, primarily these Knights SR25 mags. And then over here on this side, had my radio, Baofeng radio, push to talk, had this guy plugged up into my comm set. Did I talk to anyone? Of course I talked to someone. Talked to my buddy Bill Rapier, right? 3 different pillars, shoot, move, communicate, or probably more aptly, communicate, move, and shoot, because survival is a team sport. And then over here had a extra tourniquet, one of these soft T wides. But yeah, this stuff was definitely comfortable, did a great job for me. And lastly, my primary, my long gun for the course. We're shooting this right here, Knight's Armament SR25, chambered in 308. On it, all kinds of things. I was running this right here, which is the Contour Sling by Lunar Concepts. Great sling, definitely nice having something relatively wide with a little bit of padding, because spoiler, this thing's a pig. It is honestly really heavy, especially with everything that's going on with it. I was using this Unity mount right here, raising up this ATACR 1:8 by Nightforce. Amazing optic. I will say, not really the place where this optic's gonna shine, just because pretty close engagement distances. We're doing a lot of like up drills, working offset, things like that. And for this, we were shooting probably like 50, 60 yards. So with that, again, not the ideal setup per se, but what actually was really nice was running this right here, which is my offset RMR in a Valhalla tactical offset mount. Made it really easy to just roll the gun to the side and get those up close, fast shots where magnification wasn't really helping me. Definitely did some shooting through this at night through the ATACR 1:8 passive. It was honestly kind of hard to use. Sample size of 1, I'll spend more time with it, but for me to kind of make it usable, I had to basically crank my focus over my dominant eye that I was going to shoot through all the way back so that the reticle was clear. Otherwise, even on the lowest setting, it was just kind of like this giant kind of blooming fireball. And part of it probably astigmatism too. But, oh, real quick too, also on this, both the grip as well as the hand stop are by Rev Firearms. Definitely nice, huge improvement. I'm not a fan of like, you have a nice gun and then it's like A2 grip on here. Not a big fan, but moving forward, Unity Tactical hot buttons. Really, really handy, especially with longer guns, especially running a cannon, stuff like that. Wanting to push everything forward to where you end up fatiguing out pretty quick if you got to come all the way forward to be able to use that, versus keeping my hand in a more comfortable position, both shooting and otherwise, and giving myself access to both those buttons right there. It was really cool. And then of course, BE Meyers MAWL. Incredible, incredible device. One thing that's really nice is Viz laser, IR illuminator. And a lot of people will run different types of IR illuminators, things like that. A lot of them you kind of have to mess with. Think about like the old mag lights, where you're like twisting the head of it, trying to shape the beam. This, you can basically move back and forth between settings and then high-low, and you have a bunch of different settings. And so by way of example, when we were actually doing kind of a little run and gun, had it on low setting initially, which is great for like indoors, up close stuff, kind of really wide, and then your laser. Wasn't really seen deep into the woods, so moved it up to mid setting, basically focused down that beam some, was able to see my targets. Made it really handy. And then over here, not that we did much white light stuff, but the Valhalla tactical light with the SureFire switch, or tail cap rather, so it interfaced with the hot button. And then lastly, this guy right here, which is the Trijicon by Q, titanium silencer. If you guys saw my, I guess, part 4, my flash mitigation series, this thing definitely sparks. It's titanium, like that's a known thing. You'll get white sparking sometimes from titanium silencers, but you also have really lightweight silencers. So if I was gonna go carry this into battle, blah, 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 which I wasn't, yeah, probably a different silencer for no other reason than signature reduction. Does a really good job of keeping quiet, which is nice, and it's not adding a ton of weight to the end of a already heavy gun. But yeah, sparking, very real thing. So know the situation you're going into and pick the right equipment appropriate to it. Again, night vision class did great. onto a battlefield, maybe not. Probably find something that doesn't spark. But big picture, this gun did a good job for me. I will say it's just a lot of gun. Like, it is a heavy gun. And on top of that, you have 20 round magazines, which are heavier than like your 30 round 5.56 magazines. And yeah, it's just a pig. It did a good job, but definitely like rifle PT. Eventually, sooner than later, you end up fatiguing out. Like, that's definitely a real thing. And it's a heavy gun. It did good for me in that class to include most everything on it. It's just, yeah, if you have too heavy of a gun, you're going to be struggling just doing up drills rather than getting the information and the reps in that you want. But like I said, definitely made it work. Definitely not the lightest gun, but pretty fun as well. And that right there wraps up my loadout from the 2021 3-day night vision course with AMTAC shooting. Down below, there'll be links for everything. And if you appreciate my content and want to support it, greatly appreciate it. One of the ways is supporting me directly through Patreon. Helps me go out, create more content for you. And as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.